The general silence. The air was thick with the hum of fluorescent lights in the narrow security corridor of the Fairview precinct, a squat brick building on the edge of a sleepy Virginia suburb. It was just past dusk, and the evening shift was settling into routine when Officer Daniel Whitaker, a man hardened by years of patrol, spotted a black woman walking past the restricted zone near the precinct's south gate. Her dark skin and quiet demeanor sparked something in him, a reflex born of assumptions he'd never questioned. Without hesitation, he drew his Glock and aimed it at her face, his voice sharp. "Stop right there. This is a restricted area. Show me your ID." The woman froze, hands visible, her silver-threaded hair catching the cold blue light of the biometric scanner. She didn't flinch. Seconds later, the scanner beeped a harsh, unfamiliar tone that made Whitaker's wrist HUD flash red. Delta, 1 clearance required. His stomach twisted. That wasn't a civilian code. It was something else, something beyond his pay grade. The woman, in her late 50s, stood calm, her gray coat unremarkable, but her presence electric, like a storm waiting to break. Whitaker's instincts screamed to double down. "I said, ID. Now." She met his gaze, not with defiance but with a stillness that unnerved him. Her eyes flicked to the camera above, holding it as if speaking to someone he couldn't see. The silence stretched, and Whitaker's rookie partner, a jittery kid named Tommy, shifted nervously behind him. "Run a manual check," Whitaker barked. "Iris, DMV, voter rolls, everything." Tommy's console returned nothing, no name, no record, no trace. It was as if the woman didn't exist. Whitaker's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "A ghost, huh? Out for a stroll in my zone." She spoke then, her voice low and measured, like a teacher correcting a misstep. "Wrong question, officer." The words landed like a slap, not loud but precise. Whitaker's smirk faltered, but he pressed on, activating his chest scanner. The system glitched, froze, then flashed. "Access denied. Oversight required." A crackle came through his comm, but dispatch was silent. Tommy whispered, "Sir." The camera 8 zoomed in on its own. Whitaker's neck prickled. He glanced at the tower cam, its lens locked on the woman's face. "Let's make this simple," he said, his tone sharpening. "You're either a criminal or a problem. Which is it?" She didn't answer, her gaze steady on the camera, her breath slow, deliberate. Frustration boiled in Whitaker's chest. "Detain her," he snapped, stepping forward to take point. As he reached for her arm, her eyes shifted to his, and he froze. There was no fear, no submission, just a look that pierced through his badge, his gun, his certainty. For a moment, he wasn't sure who was in control. She moved at her own pace, not resisting, not hurrying, as they led her to interrogation room 3. The walls were gray, the steel table cold. Whitaker placed his Glock on the table, barrel angled toward her, a silent threat. She sat, unruffled, her eyes drifting to the clock above the two-way mirror. Whitaker dropped an empty folder with a thud, leaning forward. "This is your file. Blank. You don't exist, not to the IRS, not to the census, not to anyone. You're a void, lady." She didn't react, her gaze fixed on the ticking second hand. His voice dropped to a growl. "Tell me who you are, where you live, and why you're here, or I'll bury you in protocol until you beg for a name." Still nothing. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Whitaker leaned closer, his shadow crossing her face. "You think silence buys you time? I'll build your file from scratch, brick by brick." She finally spoke, her voice like ice on glass. "You're still asking the wrong questions." He slammed his fist on the table, the Glock rattling. "I'm asking the only ones that matter." Digging into his pocket, he pulled out a metallic card he'd lifted from her coat during the pat-down. It shimmered, heavier than it should be, with symbols he didn't recognize. He pressed it to the desk scanner. The machine buzzed, glowed red-hot, and shut down, smoke curling from its vent. Whitaker's eyes flared. "Delta, 1 clearance? That's Ghost Protocol. Who issued this to you?" She tilted her head, almost pitying. "I'm not answering you, not because I'm afraid, but because you're speaking the wrong language." The clock ticked louder, each second a countdown Whitaker hadn't signed up for. He paced, the card burning in his hand. "Who's watching this?" he demanded, spinning toward the camera. The screen blinked, subject engaged. Observation active. His grip tightened. "This is a setup, isn't it? You walked into my zone to test me." She didn't confirm, but her eyes held his, and the truth landed like a blade. "No," she said softly. "You were the subject before I entered the room. You're only just realizing it." The room's light shifted to a deep red, and a digital panel above the door flared. Sentry lockdown. The door wouldn't budge. Every screen displayed, live feed, Federal Oversight Channel. Whitaker lunged for the emergency override, barking into the mic, "Dispatch, open the door now." A flat, robotic voice replied, "Access denied by oversight protocol." His breath caught. He turned to her, still seated, adjusting her cuff to reveal a small circuit embedded in the fabric. "Do you feel it yet?" she asked, her voice clinical. The absence of command. Whitaker's hand hovered near the Glock. "You locked us in." She shook her head. "The system did. It answers to something I carry." He grabbed the card again, now warm, humming. "What is this?" Her reply was calm, final. "Fear isn't the objective. Reaction is." The door hissed open, and 3 men in civilian clothes entered, moving like they owned the precinct. The lead handed Whitaker an envelope with a Department of Defense seal and a red stamp. "Field ethics assessment initiated." Whitaker's laugh was brittle. "An audit? For me?" He tore it open, his name and ID number staring back, signed by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He turned to the woman. "You knew." She rose, her voice steady. "I didn't come to answer questions. I came to observe reflex." The wall panel slid open, and a projection lit up. A woman in dress uniform, medals gleaming, shaking hands with the Secretary of Defense. The caption read, "Eleanor Grayson, General, Ret. Delta, 1 active, classified operations." Whitaker's knees buckled. Grayson, a name whispered in training halls, a legend who'd vanished from public record but never from the Pentagon's shadow. The screen cycled through her deployment's war zones, sealed briefings, and ceremonies where her shadow alone carried weight. A final caption, "Designated Strategic Observer, Delta, 1 Autonomous." Whitaker's voice cracked. "Why me?" Grayson's answer was surgical. "You were the most predictable variable in the model." The word shattered him. Not weak, not evil predictable. His every move had been mapped, his every reflex cataloged. The men from Fort Meade spoke. "Your reflex has been recorded and transmitted." Whitaker's face drained. To whom? They didn't answer. The screen shifted to footage of him, mocking a victim's name, laughing at a detainee's pain, twisting a teenager's arm. Each clip was timestamped, watermarked, ethics monitor active. Grayson read from a tablet, her voice unrelenting. "November 12th, you called a civilian trash. December 3rd, you laughed while a minor cried." The screen locked on a final frame. Conclusion: ethically unfit. Recommended termination. Whitaker staggered back. "You set this up." Grayson corrected. "I initiated it. 3 months of review. Every decision you made when you thought no one was watching." He tried to protest, but the footage looped his own words, his own choices, undeniable. "The job doesn't excuse you," Grayson said. "It reveals you." The precinct buzzed the next morning, screens flashing. Department of Defense Ethics Assessment. Daniel Whitaker. Result: fail. His name was erased from systems, his badge stripped, his access nullified. The footage of him aiming at Grayson went viral, not as outrage but as evidence. Newsrooms looped it, senators tweeted it, and training modules embedded it under Case Reflex Alpha, what unmonitored power reveals. Whitaker walked the halls, a ghost in his precinct, eyes averted by colleagues who once nodded in respect. Grayson remained silent, declining interviews, her absence louder than any speech. She returned to her modest Virginia home, hanging her uniform with care, placing her Delta, 1 card in a wooden box. Her old shepherd greeted her, and she knelt, whispering, "It's done." Outside, a child on a bike waved. She nodded back, then closed the curtain. Whitaker, stripped of rank, received a list from Grayson, 9 names, victims of his past actions. He sat alone, the paper trembling in his hands. He didn't burn it. He didn't hide. At dawn, he dialed the first number, his voice shaking. "This is Daniel Whitaker. I'm calling to listen." The line crackled, and a woman's voice answered, cautious but clear. "Start talking." The call lasted an hour. He didn't defend, didn't justify, just listened. By the 9th call, his voice was steady, his apologies raw but real. He'd never wear a badge again, but he'd carry those names, etched deeper than any rank. Grayson's silence had broken him, but it also showed him a path not to redemption, but to accountability. What do you think of Daniel Whitaker's fall and Eleanor Grayson's unyielding silence? How do violence and injustice shape our lives, and what does it take to confront them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Take a stand, voice your perspective, and let's discuss what this story means for us all.